All right, so we are live here at AHR 2023, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here with Cody from Caleffi, National Training Manager with Caleffi.
Yep.
So we're going to do some hydronics talk, which everybody knows that I'm kind of a poser when it comes to hydronics, but I'll fumble my way through. But Cody's got like real tech chops. He's doing it for a while. So yeah, tell us a little bit about you, kind of your background first.
Sure, Bryan. Well, thanks first and foremost for having me and everything like that. Happy to be here. Again, you mentioned before I was in the field, so I did have some field experience for about 10 years, and I switched over to the manufacturer side just a little shortly after that. I was working on everything from forced air to geothermal to hydronics to whatever my boss wanted to throw at me. And after that, I decided I really liked the idea of teaching and training. I had a little bit of experience while I was with that company, and here we are.
To go-to guys when it comes to hydronics, but
Yep.
admittedly not my strength. Tell us a little bit about Caleffi, though. Like, what all does Caleffi do? What do they mean?
Well, Caleffi is an Italian manufacturer of products, typically like accessory type products that you're going to find in your hydronic systems or your plumbing systems. So we make everything from mixing valves to zone valves to balancing valves to manifolds. Big on brass, so we're a big brass manufacturer, which is really common in northern Italy. And from there, we do also steel components, and we do a lot of injection molding as well. Now, as far as Caleffi North America is concerned, we're actually based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We do a lot of light assembly there. We do a lot of warehousing. All of our product comes anywhere. If you're getting our product in America, the United States, or in Canada, it's coming out of Milwaukee.
Got it.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, they obviously have an investment in training because you're the guy.
I'm the guy. They pay me a lot to do this.
Okay, well, hey, maybe we should all get a job at Caleffi. This sounds great. So what sort of trainings do you typically do?
It's kind of all over the place. It's there's obviously, as you probably already realized, there's a huge need for education in this industry. There's a big gap between a lot of the older generation that are starting to retire and the new guys that are coming in. And it's not just technicians. I work with service contractors. I work with engineers. I work with wholesalers. I work with anybody. I actually have a group coming in next and in the next couple of weeks. It's actually a Plumbing Inspectors Association of Southeastern Wisconsin.
Okay.
Now that's a mouthful, but these guys
was a thing.
I know. I didn't even know there was an association for such an animal. But these guys wanted to come in and learn about balancing domestic hot water research systems. And it's one of those things where the more we can educate people, a rising tide lifts all boats, kind of thing.
Yeah. And do you find that like most of the challenges that you face, this is true in the other parts of HVAC, and most of the challenges that you face come from improper initial commissioning and installation?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I was in the field, I don't want to say that I was the cleanup guy, but it was one of those things where, we just installed this, Cody, it doesn't work, go fix it kind of thing, and whether it be miswiring or improper setup of controls just in general, I would say in general, anything with electricity going to it is usually kind of a taboo area for a lot of technicians, and I saw over here you got some of these simulators and people using meters and everything, and I think that's so fantastic because there's so many guys that I talk to on the phone that just they don't know how to use a meter, and I'm literally training them to do that first sometimes, and then going on to whatever we need to work on. So
it sounds like kind of the same thing that a lot of us have been talking about with education. A lot of it comes down to just mastering the fundamentals, becoming masters of those real basic principles. And like I mentioned when we were talking before, like Dan Holohan's books, basically everything I know about hydronics I learned from him, and just the kind of the eureka moment of pumping away and all that stuff. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Sure.
So tell me, just give me some samples of some of the most common either mistakes or common questions or things that you're having to kind of reiterate consistently with hydronics.
Sure. Well, at Caleffi, we make all those accessories that go in the boiler rooms, the mechanical rooms, throughout distribution systems. There's a lot of boiler manufacturers out there that put on a lot of trainings, and I think they do a fantastic job, but they kind of want to stick inside their boiler, they don't want to talk outside the boiler. And what really makes it great at Caleffi is that we do get to talk about that. And with your question in mind, a lot of our questions with hydronics really come from just your near boiler piping scenarios. Like you said, pumping away, the idea of point of no pressure change, hydraulic separation, proper sizing of piping and circulators. We don't even make circulators, but it's one of those things where we do talk about it quite frequently. Not only that, best positions for this type of equipment, proper locations and things like that. It's pretty amazing what happens with a lot of these jobs where You know, I always joke with the fact that hydronics, and I would say it goes for heating, forced air heating and cooling as well. You can screw it up pretty bad, and it's usually still going to work well enough to where nobody's going to complain.
Right. They don't know.
And the thing is with it is knowing best practices and knowing why you're doing it that way, as opposed to just I do it this way because my boss told me to. You know, knowing those differences is what makes a good contractor a great contractor, or installer, technician, whoever. And so what we really try to go for is not just where to put all the pieces of the puzzle, but why you're putting them there as well. And not only knowing the rules, but if you know the rules, you know the ability. If you bend the rule a little bit, you know what's going to happen too, which is it's key, because sometimes you do have to bend the rules a little bit, and at least you're going to know the consequences sometimes.
You rebel, you.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
I
know. I'm going to pump into that expansion tank is what I'm going to do.
You better.
Yeah.
That's funny. And it's interesting when you say that you have to first know first principles. You have to begin with, that's what they're called, first principles. You have to begin with how heat flows work, how pressure drops, and just flow rates and all that kind of stuff. And all that we do is move BTUs around. Like that's what we do.
Exactly. Whether it's with air or water.
With air or water. We're moving BTUs around, and it's riding on the back of air or water. And now understanding flow rates and deltas and all that kind of stuff, that all ties into that. We talk about it all the time. What are some of the things that if you had like one thing that you regularly have to talk to contractors about, where they're just like not getting it right? What is one of the most common things? Give me one. It doesn't have to be the most. It doesn't have to be the most common, but one I would say is on top of your head.
You know, we're a big manufacturer of mixing valves, three-way mixing valves. So the idea that you're taking hot water, cold water, mixing it together to create some tempered water, whatever temperature you're looking at. And so when you talk about mixing valves, they can be used in plumbing applications, obviously, and all of our mixing valves are low lead, so they can be used in plumbing or hydronics. But when you are using them in hydronic applications, proper placement of circulators and proper sizing of mixing valves is a very common application, because in a plumbing application, if you have a 3/4 inch mixing valve, in a plumbing application, you might reach your maximum flow through that mixing valve, and it produces a 10 psi drop. Okay, 10 psi is not a whole lot in a plumbing application, but 10 psi is like 20 some odd feet ahead in a hydronic application. And what that's going to mean is a really big pump, to be able to pull through that kind of guy. And not only that, again, the idea of sizing that mixing valve appropriately for your application and the flow rates that you need, the idea that you're installing it correctly, you're pumping away from that mixing valve to provide it the ability to have the choice to choose from hot or cold to mix it properly in order to get the job done. So I would definitely say mixing valves is right up there. It's a conversation I have quite frequently, not only on the hydronic side, but the plumbing side as well. So
thinking about there's always a cost with any sort of a valve, or obviously you can like vastly oversize things, but making sure that you get that sizing right. We do this a lot with solenoids, where people think you can just put, hey, if the size of the tubing on each side is the right size, that's all that matters. It's like, no, you actually have to know what is the capacity of this valve. You have to have that appropriate pressure drop in order to drive the valve, but you don't want it to be too great. So there's all these factors like that come up. That's
the Goldilocks scenario, the just right scenario. And you're 100% correct. Everybody's so afraid of undersizing equipment or mixing valves or whatever, that in a lot of cases they'll oversize it, and that can be even worse, especially on the plumbing side. When you look at a three-way mixing valve, every three-way mixing valve is going to have a minimum flow requirement. And the reason behind that is that when you bring the hot and cold together into that mixing valve, it needs to create enough turbulence to create a good mixed temperature for the whatever wax motor or sensor that's going to be in that mixing valve. And if you don't create that turbulent environment, the sensor or the motor is only going to read either all hot or all cold. It's going to hunt all over the place. And to be honest with you, Brian, if I had a nickel for every time a contractor went and ordered a mixing valve solely based on the size of the pipe that it's connecting to, I could probably retire already, and I'm not even 40. So that'd be great if I could. But
you'd have a few nickels. I like the Goldilocks scenario. That's what you call it. I'm going to use that from now on. It's going to be
more power to you.
Not too hot, not too cold.
I always learn something.
Cool. So what are some products, technologies, things that are kind of changing or emerging that you're excited about?
Yeah. So, as an industry, the heating industry, hydronic industry as a whole, we're seeing the huge effects of decarbonization. I mean, obviously everybody's talking about it.
Yep.
The idea that we want to get away from natural gas, we want to get away from propane, fuel oil, whatever. We're seeing huge increases in demand for heat pumps and alternative fuels and everything like that. I think that's going to also create a demand for better operating systems. You get a lot of these systems where they were designed 40 or 50 years ago. They worked great, but now all of a sudden you're putting this new piece of equipment in there, and it's might be a little more finicky than what you were used to with that old cast iron block boiler or steel boiler. And you got to work around that kind of stuff. And so I'm really looking forward to what the future brings for product. Now at Caleffi, we are a company, like I mentioned before, that does hydronic and plumbing accessories. So as a company, we are putting a lot of heavy focus on the plumbing industry side of things. We're going towards backflow prevention, pressure vacuum breakers, RP backflows. The list goes on and on and on. Pressure reducing valves. We're coming down the line with a lot of really cool stuff. Now, hydronic wise, we've also got some of our pressure independent control valves that are going to be more for your commercial type applications, but they're also very cool. But again, I'm really looking forward to the industry and where we're shifting with different types of heat sources and fuel sources. I can't wait to see what comes about.
Yeah, a lot is going to change.
Yeah.
Some of it may change too quickly. Some of it may change too slow, and we're going to have to kind of, bob and weave with it as we go.
For sure.
But yeah, it's good to, again, like I always say this, but I truly mean it. It's cool to see organizations like Caleffi who have somebody like you in place and who are focusing on training and who recognize that a well-trained contractor base, whether it's plumbing or hydronics, is what makes for better outcomes.
Yeah.
And better outcomes for the client.
Yep.
Better outcomes with lower warranty returns for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
every bit
huge.
helps.
That's huge.
I will say too, on the topic of education, we are hugely committed to education so much. Obviously, like I said, that's my full-time job is doing education. But with that in mind, for your listeners, if they are interested in learning more about hydronic applications and even plumbing too, for that matter, we actually produce a technical journal 2 times a year. Nice. It is completely free. You can download it as a PDF. We have got digital versions of it. We've got paper copies too that you can sign up and have delivered to you. And with those copies of Hydronics, we tackle all different types of topics and everything from pump sizing to heat emitters to heat exchangers. We did geothermal, solar thermal, the whole 9 yards. It's tons of information out there, and again, it's right at your fingertips, so don't hesitate to look into that stuff.
Awesome.
It can make it a game changer for you. So.
Yeah, great. So for people who want to find out more about you guys, where do they go?
Yeah, you can just go to caleffi.com. The only thing I will mention is that when you're on the website, make sure you're on the North American version of the website. We are a global company. Yep. If you go to the international website, you might see some cool product that we don't have here quite yet. But if you go to the North American version of the website, especially when it comes to education, there's a tab right across the top where you can click on education. You can see our technical journals that we offered there before. We've got tons of stuff on YouTube as well. We're all over the place, the podcasts, everything. So nice. A lot of good resources for those guys. Nice. And now HVAC School Podcast. Yeah, exactly. Well. So, and again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Cody. It's really nice meeting you, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.